طريق القدس يمر بالقلمون وبالزبداني وبحمص.
طريق فلسطين لا ما بتمر بالزبداني ودمشق.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, happy to be back after the holy month of Ramadan. Here are today's headlines. The cabinet fails to find a solution to the trash crisis. Prime Minister Tamam Slam postpones discussions to Tuesday. Firefighters put out at least 140 fires set on dumpsters and piles of uncollected garbage across Beirut. And UN envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura says government forces have dropped a large number of barrel bombs on Zabadani city, causing unprecedented levels of destruction. The cabinet has failed to find a solution to the trash crisis which left Beirut and Mount Lebanon buried under garbage. Prime Minister Tamam Slam postponed discussions to Tuesday. Garbage has been left uncollected in Beirut and Mount Lebanon since Sunday, 2 days after the closure of the Nami landfill. Environment Minister Mohamed Al-Mashnou had promised a solution to the crisis will be found during the next cabinet session. Health Minister Wael Abu Faour said that employing existing quarries as landfills was a proposal worthy of discussion and that it was irrational to enable quarry operators to destroy the environment but not allow municipalities to bury their trash. There are fears that the government may not act as it is currently locked up in a dispute with Free Patriotic Movement over security appointments. Firefighters have put out at least 140 fires set on dumpsters and piles of uncollected garbage across the capital since the waste crisis began on Monday. A statement says firefighters were still working up on more fires and warned residents of the health hazards of trash burning. The statement also urged citizens to call hotline number 175 for any emergency. UN envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura says government forces have dropped a large number of barrel bombs on Zabadani city, causing unprecedented levels of destruction. De Mistura cited local sources saying the airstrikes caused many civilian deaths in the city, located about 45 kilometers northwest of the capital Damascus and about 10 kilometers from the border with Lebanon. He said the army of Fatah, a Sunni rebel alliance that controls Zabadani, retaliated by firing rockets and mortar bombs on two Shia villages, Al-Fu'a and Kifraya, near Idlib city in the north, and in both cases civilians are tragically caught in the middle of the fighting. Syrian state television said the army had destroyed a tunnel used by rebels to transport equipment into Zabadani. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says fierce clashes continued overnight in the area, with heavy aerial bombardments in and around the city and reports of casualties on both sides. No detailed figures were given. And coming up next, Pentagon Chief Ashton Carter makes a surprise visit to Baghdad for talks on Iraq's war against the Islamic State. More details after the break. Welcome back. Military officials say Saudi-backed troops and local militias are in full control of Yemen's strategic port city of Aden after repelling Shiite rebels from their last holdout in the city's presidential compound. The officials said new checkpoints were erected around the city to search for remnants of the rebel forces who lost control of the presidential compound overnight following days of intense fighting. Meanwhile, airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition continued north of Aden, and troops pushed their way into provinces east and north of the capital in an attempt to secure control of it. Fighting was most intense around the rebel-controlled military base of Al Anad in the province of Lahej. Pentagon Chief Ashton Carter flew to Baghdad for talks on Iraq's war against the Islamic State group, whose caliphate is shrinking but is ramping up deadly car bombings. Carter was to meet with Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi and Sunni Arab tribal leaders from Anbar, the province where much of the fighting has taken place in recent weeks. During his brief visit, which had not been announced in advance for security reasons, Carter will also meet some of the 3,500 U.S. troops deployed to train and advise Iraqi forces. Current military efforts against ISIS, which took over close to a third of Iraq's last year, are focusing on Anbar, where U.S. forces faced their toughest battles during their 8-year occupation of the country. The international coalition led by the United States has conducted thousands of airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq and Syria over the past year. Moving on to Europe, Greece's parliament has passed legislation on a second batch of reforms needed to help unlock a huge international bailout for the country's stricken economy. The bill, containing judicial and banking reforms, easily passed early on Tuesday morning with the support of 230 lawmakers in a 300-seat parliament, thanks to the support of pro-Euro opposition parties. With 36 out of 149 deputies from Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras' Syriza party voted against the overall bill or abstained, less than the rebellion by 39 deputies in last week's vote on an initial set of reforms. Analysts had regarded this morning's vote as an important test of whether Tsipras could avoid another deep split within his own party and head off the risk of early elections after only 6 months in power. The bill includes civil justice reforms, a bank deposit protection scheme, and measures to shore up the liquidity of the banks. Prominent Republican senators say they hope to defeat the passage of the landmark nuclear deal with Iran when it comes up for a vote. U.S. President Barack Obama, a Democrat, and other top officials have begun a full-bore effort to persuade skeptical lawmakers not to fight the deal, and Secretary of State John Kerry has met with members of Congress to brief them on the agreement. Speaking to reporters before the briefing, Kerry said the agreement is in the interests of the United States and its allies. But as he emerged from the meeting, Republican Senator and presidential candidate Lindsey Graham was scathing in his criticism of the deal with Iran.
So we're very much looking forward to answering any and every question that the members of the House have, and then later the members of the Senate. We are convinced that the agreement that we have arrived at with world powers is an agreement that will prevent Iran from the potential of securing a nuclear weapon. It will make the region, our friends and allies, safer. It will make the world safer. And we are convinced that the absence of any viable alternative absolutely underscores that fact.
So the construct that Secretary Kerry has in his mind, that there's a moderate hardline element and we need to empower the moderates, I think is a gross misunderstanding of Iran. And the idea that you have to take this deal or we have a war comes from a weak-minded president and a Secretary of State who wants a deal way too badly. At the end of the day, there is a better deal awaiting the world and the United States with a new president. This is the best deal Barack Obama could get because he's so weak in the eyes of our enemies and so unreliable in the eyes of our friends. So I hope a no vote will be seen as empowering the next president.
And still on the issue, several thousands of protesters have gathered in New York City's Times Square to urge the U.S. Congress to vote down the Iran nuclear deal. The chorus was led by several current and former politicians, including the three-time Republican governor of New York, George Pataki.
Throughout the negotiations, we heard the Obama administration and Obama say, no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, this isn't a bad deal. This is a god-awful deal. It must be rejected. Congress must do its job and stand up for the American people, stand up for our safety, and say no to this Iranian deal.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that the Iranians have been watching Barack Obama for a very long time. And when he stood idly by and knowingly watched as thousands of innocent civilians in Iraq were either butchered, tortured, raped, beheaded, crucified, or burned alive, the Iranian leaders knew that they had nothing to fear from Barack Obama. So they came to the table with nothing and walked away with everything. And now, instead of making sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapons capability, Mr. Obama's politically motivated peace in our time deal empowers this and the most dangerous sponsor of terrorism on this earth, and now places them on a sure path, not just to obtain a nuclear weapon, but an entire nuclear arsenal.
And what we really hope today is to send a message to the world, but especially to the United States Senate and Congress, that They need to look at it. If they can convince us that there's something here to salvage, we're all ears. But if not, we hope they'll have the courage, the personal courage, as well as the political courage to do the right thing and vote no against this pact.
Still in the United States, nearly 300 firefighters are continuing to battle a fast-moving wildfire in Napa County, California. Local reports say the fire, which has already burned 1,000 acres, was sparked by a vehicle crash on a nearby highway. Officials are urging visitors and hikers of a nearby popular hiking and campground area to stay away. At least 3 hikers had to be rescued from Pole Canyon, just south of Lake Berryessa. Eruptions of ash from North Sumatra's Mount Sinabung volcano shrouded the skies over parts of the Indonesian archipelago. Sinabung is one of the 5 volcanoes which erupted on Wednesday, forcing 3 airports to close. Authorities were closely monitoring the volcano after placing it at the highest alert level on early June. A total of more than 13,000 people have been evacuated due to the volcanic eruptions since late last month. The film Everest, based on the 1996 disaster in which 8 people died in a blizzard on the world's highest mountain, will open the 72nd Venice Film Festival. Jason Clarke, Sam Worthington, Keira Knightley, Emily Watson, and Jake Gyllenhaal star in the film by the Icelandic director Baltasar Kormákur that will have its world premiere on the festival's opening day on September 2nd. Here's the trailer.
You, my friends, are following in the very footsteps of history. Something beyond the power of words to describe. Human beings simply aren't built to function at the cruising altitude of a 747. Our bodies will be literally dying. Everest is another beast altogether.
How you doing? I'm back.
Doug Hansen.
What do you do when you're not climbing, Doug?
I deliver the mail.
First mailman on Everest?
Hope so.
I like that.
Sit down, man. Climatize.
How's the weather?
It's good.
I wish I was with you.
One day, you, me, and the little Sarah will all go climbing together.
So today's the day, huh?
It hurts. It's dangerous. Why? I have kids. They see a regular guy can follow impossible dreams. Maybe they'll do the same.
We're at the top of Everest, Alan. We made it.
Go to Rob. There is a massive storm headed your way.
Oh no. You've got to get moving. You've got to come on down.
There's no oxygen. You go. I'm down. No, I'm not leaving you behind. Come on.
It's gonna take all we got.
We're all getting down together. Now let's go.
If anyone can make it, you can.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The cabinet fails to find a solution to the trash crisis. Prime Minister Tanan Slam postpones discussions to Tuesday. Firefighters put out at least 140 fires set on dumpsters and piles of uncollected garbage across Beirut. And UN envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura says government forces have dropped a large number of barrel bombs in Zabadani city, causing unprecedented levels of destruction. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for tuning in this afternoon. Take care.
طريق القدس يمر بالقلمون وبالزبداني وبحمص.
طريق فلسطين لا ما بتمر بالزبداني ودمشق.